Welcome to Checks and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair, and we're back in 2024, but we're going to start with our recap of 2023 and why everything rallied.
So, Mike, we've released a couple of episodes, but we're going to break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
First filming for the year.
We're back,
How good is
baby.
it to be back?
I know. How's the break?
Was good. It was good. Went to Sydney. Bit of time in Manly. Watched
Bit of cricket? Yeah.
How about you? You went up north.
Yeah, family's got a farm up in Tarry Bay, up top of the North Islands. Was up there for a bit, played a DJ set in Whangarei Heads on New Year's Eve, and then I married two of my friends in a ceremony. I performed the ceremony to marry two of my friends at a ceremony down in Castaway.
Did you do the online accreditation?
No, I didn't, which is funny because I got to do the whole thing where I was like, by the power vested in me, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I now pronounce you man and wife.
I thought it'd be like the power invested in me by weddings.com or something like that. Yeah.
By Checks and Balances.
Yeah. One more question before we jump into the topic of why everything went up.
Yeah.
How long is it acceptable to say, how was your New Year's break before you go, look, there's too much time to pass?
This is a really interesting thing for me because I don't want anyone to say it. I'm like, I get these conversations with I'm sorry to all my customers that have asked me. I appreciate the interest, but I'm like, let's just get down to brass tacks. It's a busy year here. We're damn near in Feb. You know what I mean? I'm like, don't be like, oh, Happy New Year to me. I'm like, it was great. 6 months ago.
Yeah, rugby league season is pretty much about to start.
NRL's
Let's get on with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about maybe 2024 and our thoughts about what we think might happen. But let's start with recapping 2023. Now, Mike, I want to take you back to the start of the year, right?
Yeah.
Close your eyes, go on a journey with me. You know, recession talks, interest rates high.
Yeah.
How high will interest rates go?
Yeah.
What will happen to unemployment? How are you feeling going into, and as a mortgage broker, which is very intrinsically tied to interest rates, confidence, so people will load themselves up with debt. How were you feeling going into last year?
It was pretty grim. I'm not gonna lie. So outwardly, you project, confidence in the market, and because you are trying to reassure people that on a long-term cycle, this is perfectly normal. But that doesn't make it any easier for you at the time. Practically, what's happening around you. There was talk of interest rates going double digits. Banks were falling over. For a while there, it was very shaky. We had a war kicking off, going in full swing actually, in Ukraine and Russia. And it was a very unstable and uncertain time for global markets and for the domestic economy as well. So, while you try and reassure your customers, doesn't make it any easier. So I was pretty worried. You alluded to it. We're a mortgage business. We are a pro-cyclical business. I can pedal as hard as I want, but if no one is transacting, it's pretty tough.
Just sounds like a truckload of excuses to me for not performing.
How are you feeling?
Last year, I thought it was going to be particularly tough. It did not work out nearly as badly as I thought it would be. And to get to the point, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Your
additional grey hairs say something different, but keep going.
I tell you what, there's a
the
bit
beard?
on my chin where I'm getting condensed grey hairs now. So I can't let it grow much because otherwise it's just what's happening with old Dumbledore down there. Feeling a lot more better about the direction we're heading in.
Yeah.
But it's nice to reflect on what happened last year because, we just keep moving forward, step, and you forget all the things that happened.
Yeah, you do. And it was a lot happened last year.
So where should we start? Should we start maybe with the big movement of AI and ChatGPT?
Yeah, so AI in its current format has been around for quite some time, but last year was really the first year that it got released to the public. So the public had interactions with it. They started to use it, and they became very aware of its capabilities, its limitations, the fun stuff you can do with it, and also which came along with it, which you get with every new technology that comes into a market, the fear of, oh my God, all of these jobs are going to disappear now, and AI is going to take over everything, and the robots will win.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to pinpoint through history how many different stages people have gone, oh my God, everybody's going to lose their job.
Yeah.
Definitely felt like we were going through that with AI this year. You have a really nice analogy that I like around blacksmiths.
Yeah, it's if you tried to explain to a blacksmith in medieval times what an HR manager does, they would just go cross-eyed. They'd be like, I have no idea. And it's one of those things where as new technologies are introduced into the market, it's not just that jobs disappear, some jobs do, but other jobs are created. There's a stat at the moment, it's like of all the jobs in the market, 60% of them weren't around 30 years ago, right? And that just shows you that although new technology does come into the market, other jobs are created or jobs change. You know? So the fear doesn't have to be there. I think with AI and the current situation is because things are changing so rapidly, people's fear is that jobs will disappear faster than they appear or kind of augment to compensate for that, which, may be a valid fear, but, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. The other interesting one is pretty much everybody became an AI specialist, right? Every business, every
LinkedIn profile.
LinkedIn profile, click and go on my course. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's the same as crypto. When crypto first came out, everyone was a blockchain specialist or a crypto specialist or something like that. And like, hey, man, don't hate the player, hate the game. You want to capitalize on the gold rush, go do it.
Yeah. AI also did some really funny things. So if you go into ChatGPT and go like, how is Mountain Dew created? You get some pretty funny images, which we're going to bring up, which is pretty much like a farmer getting it from the natural,
stilling Mountain Dew out in the Adirondacks or something.
Taking it, by the bucket back
into
the
It looks like
factory.
moonshine whiskey. It's like moonshine Dew.
Yeah,
Mountain
I'm pretty sure
Dew.
I've seen something down in Invercargill similar with the moonshine, and I couldn't see for about 3 days.
I mean, like that fashion is Invercargill 2023 in a recap. You know what I mean? Play it on denim. Gotcha, baby.
Yeah. So some funny things happen with AI, and it's definitely. What's your prediction for AI in 2024?
I don't think anything big is going to happen in 2024. I think again, it's just that public adoption and public reaction to it that spins a lot of kind of hype up. I think long term though, what you will start to see is jobs will change, right? So at the moment, I guess you can kind of the analogy of building a car. Instead of one person building an entire car and then you switch to a production line, you'll get one person overseeing AI producing things, right? So it'll be data quality checks. You'll check on the integrity of the AI, the impact, outside of the AI's, I guess, thoughts, because it has thoughts, I guess. The impact that whatever it's building will have on society. So you'll become more of like checks and balances for what the AI is producing. So I think, and especially in like digital space, creative jobs, that sort of thing, I think that's probably how AI will impact jobs.
Okay, let's move along to one of the probably more scary things.
This is rattling.
That was happening. If something happens once, you're like, oh, it's an anomaly. Happens a second time, you kind of go, what's going on here? And we're talking about a couple of banks failing.
A couple. Yeah. I mean, the big one was Silicon Valley Bank. That was quite rattling for the entire market. Yeah.
I mean, Credit Suisse has been around for over 150 years as well. Credit Suisse is an institution.
Yeah.
The interesting thing as that was happening was everybody was like, well, this bank had issues for these isolated reasons. But if you continue to have isolated reasons to a point, it's like.
I mean, to be fair, Silicon Valley's risk team was grossly incompetent. Taking unhedged positions on long-term bonds at the bottom of the market was a very stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's not third-year finance. That's first-year finance. Like that is like literally the wrong thing to do. And to be so underhedged, and for people out there who, if we're slipping into finance jargon, hedging is when you take an opposing bet or a slightly opposing bet to kind of offset some of your risk, right? And these guys just didn't do that at all. It's a very common thing to do, and they got caught on the wrong side of the interest rates, which you could probably see coming. Credit Suisse had different risks, but Credit Suisse have been in trouble for a long time. I don't think anyone was expecting them to be around in 10 years.
Yeah. So the good news is that did not bring the whole financial system to its knees, because your boy was a little bit worried about that for a second.
Yeah.
But as described, isolated incidents doesn't really seem like it's a problem moving forward.
Yeah, and so
For now.
so in the States, the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance,
There we go.
whatever, stepped in and effectively bailed out Silicon Valley Bank, but didn't bail them out in a traditional sense of here is a whole lot of capital. What they did was they effectively closed Silicon Valley Bank, started a new bank like the National Deposit Bank of Santa Clara or something like that. And then moved both the insured and the uninsured deposits to that bank to protect, I guess, the companies that were working with Silicon Valley. And I guess they experienced a bit of a concentration risk of their customers as well, because what you have is a whole lot of tech startups, fintechs, these types of banks who have the same venture capital firms. And those venture capital firms all got spooked and told all of their all of the companies they've invested in to get all of their money out of Silicon Valley Bank at once. So I think they had like $4 billion within the space of a couple of days from like a handful of companies just leave the bank.
Yeah, unprecedented levels of withdrawals, which does create
Kills any bank,
problem. Yeah. Okay, let's switch it up from Finance Bro chat for a second, and let's talk about Beyonce and Taylor Swift.
What do you want to talk about?
Pretty much that they
as a foremost Swiftie, I think you should kick this chat off.
Yeah, I mean, as a Swiftie, and a fan of Queen Bee, they pretty much kept the whole economy running, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, they were probably joint MVP for the year, would you say?
I would say they should get some sort of Nobel Prize for economics for just keeping the whole thing going.
Yeah. I'm actually pushing for Ravi that we head over to Sydney for the Swift concert and do an episode live from there.
You have a very eclectic mix of music, I'm not going to lie. At any one point in time when I get in your car, I could have like Eminem, the Marshall Mathers LP, like literally Taylor Swift. Katy, you love a bit of Katy Perry.
I do love Katy Perry.
The song Fireworks, when we had our boxing fight, you're like, I want to walk out to Fireworks by Katy Perry. And I was like, I think that's a mistake.
You're gonna hear me roar.
But not on this podcast.
Yeah. So why are we talking about Beyonce and Taylor Swift? So between them, they did 200 concerts over the year around the world. They brought in $10 billion with a B dollars of money into the economy and growth. Now, Mike, they did not make $10 billion from ticket sales. How did they create that kind of impact into the economy?
Yeah, cool. So what you're looking at there is what we call a money multiplier. So every time an event happens or every time you inject money into an economy, what you're trying to look at is the economic measurement of how many times that dollar is spent or the amount of economic activity that is created off the back of it. So, you and I think when we go on the Checks and Balances World Tour, what we do is we fly into Sydney and we go, we're going to do a show in Sydney, right? Not only are we bringing the whole production crew, because we may have a production crew now, with us.
Ravi likes to spend up. I hear he's flying business class.
Yeah. But, people will then travel from around the country to see us. They will stay in hotels. They'll go out to restaurants. They will have drinks. They will go shopping. They might like the area and go actually, and I'm not saying this is going to be common, but let's say 1 out of the 10,000 people in the crowd is like, actually, you know what? I love Sydney. I might buy a property in Sydney.
Look, new rule. Nobody's allowed to move to Australia anymore, okay? I'm sick of talking to so many people moving to Australia.
I know.
Be a patriot and let's focus on making New Zealand great again.
But that is how you generate $10 billion of, economic activity or growth from some concerts.
Yeah, and then a couple of stats on that one as well. Taylor Swift's Her Eras tour became the first in history to surpass $1 billion in revenue that she's generated before she had reached the halfway mark of the 151 shows. Have you been to a Taylor Swift concert?
I haven't been to a Beyonce concert or a Taylor Swift concert. Not that I wouldn't like to go, because I think it'd be a phenomenal concert, like a spectacle. But there are people scrapping for those tickets who would enjoy it so much more than me. So you can have them.
I like for the first time in your life, you're pretending you're selfless. Beyonce, apparently Taylor Swift's concerts aren't a concert, they're an experience. So I hear.
Like Cirque du Soleil. Yeah. Or Day 5 of the Ashes.
Yeah. Here's another great stat for you. Beyonce's tours generated an estimated $4.5 billion for the American economy, which was about as much as the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, and like that, it's the power of celebrity, right? Getting it done.
Oh, and the Barbie movie came out this year, Mike.
Crushed it. And like shout out to all of the everyone who got a nomination at the awards. Was it like the Oscars or something? And like literally the only people who got nominated from the Barbie movie were like men. I was like, did we miss the entire point of the movie?
Yeah.
Or
Speaking of celebrating women, let's bring up Mike's
Don't.
picture of him as Ken on the podcast. Yep, those abs, Mike, are looking fire. How many days did you not eat for?
Keep going.
From memory, I think you did a gastro before.
Keep moving. Keep moving.
The other thing, so there's a little bit of fun. Market expectations versus reality.
Yeah.
So investors entered 2023 with very low expectations. World banks had just overcooked low interest rates and stimulating the economy, and we were dealing with inflation and a whole bunch of things off the back of it. So Mike, people weren't expecting a lot going into 2023, were they?
No, exactly. And that type of sentiment creates its own environment. So, we talked about at the start of this podcast, how was I feeling going into 2023? How were you feeling going into 2023? Great time to buy assets, but very tricky to get people to actually take some moves, buy things, right? Because everything's at a discount. So, yep, it's great. It's cheaper, but you are very worried about what the next month, week, day, 6 months will bring. So very reluctant to try and spend that cash or allocate capital to something that's illiquid.
Yeah, and there was one of the big questions was really how low will she go?
And how high will the interest rates go?
Yeah,
because people were predicting, there are economists going, it's going to get to 10%. And I was like, where did you find your economics license, mate?
Yeah.
And like, you need to sell that and go back to being a janitor.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a diploma in economics, it's not the same thing, right? So contrary to predictions, it did not play out like that at all. So 2023 performed really, really well. Mike, the question is, why did 2023 work out a lot better than most expected?
Yeah, cool. So markets are forward looking, right? So when we are focusing on what's happening in the economy and how we're feeling, generally we are reacting to and feeling things about what is happening right now. The market right now for the markets is the past. They are looking 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years into the future, because the markets generally understand that as the economic cycle, right? And as things go down, it is a good time to buy. It's a good time to make moves. So they will move first. So that's why you see stocks start rallying. Things start going up. People start buying things. And by the time retail investors catch on, usually it's gone. Usually the market has already moved.
As it's interesting as well that you've got over 100 years of history to look at this stuff, and the average tricky period usually lasts about 18 months.
Yeah.
We're at 18 months at about the start of the year, March, April, and people just think it's going to run forever, right? And maybe we can talk a little bit in terms of the psychology and what that made people do. One of the big movers was obviously all of those tech bros out there. Their stocks started performing. They've started moving in a good direction.
Yeah.
And then the concerns about recessions moving forward, they kind of dwindled as the year went on.
Yeah, and it's important to kind of split out the stock market from the economy here, right? The stock market can move while the economy is still not in great shape, right? Again, because they're forward looking. So yes, the companies might not have been performing very well, but the stock market says, I know you're going to perform well in the future. We're at the bottom, so we're going to pile in a whole lot of cash and the stocks will go up.
Yeah.
So important thing to kind of split out there.
Yeah. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a pat on the back. Let's just bring up the clip of us calling the bottom of the market in the middle of last year.
Yeah, I'm calling it bottom of the market to the end of the year, and then starting next year, we're starting to see it increase again. Hey, yo.
So, I mean, there was signs. We were talking to people. We felt that, it was going to be moving in a positive direction.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the numbers behind it. So, the Morningstar US Market Index soared by an impressive 26%.
Great name. I love the BlackRocks, Morningstars. They always have great names for these companies.
Yeah. And what happened? I mean, so was there any standouts, Mike?
In terms of the stocks?
Yeah.
Mainly it's the mega cap tech stocks, right? So you're talking Nvidia, the chip manufacturers, your FANGs, so Facebook, Apple, whatever, Google, all of those ones.
Yeah, the Magnificent Seven, which as of the end of Jan, there is some chat about it dropping to the Magnificent Six because Tesla's sales numbers are falling off a
I
cliff?
don't want to jump into predictions right now because we're going to do a predictions episode, but I do have a prediction classically about Elon Musk and about Tesla.
Yeah, cool. And for those wondering, the Magnificent Seven, they're the companies, those tech companies that are the really big standout performers that are, your Googles, your Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Tesla, all of those big players.
Interesting that Tesla's considered a tech company. You know what I mean? As the rest of them basically are tech companies in there. Tesla, an auto manufacturer, completely different sector, is considered a tech company. So maybe that'll be part of the reason why it's not going to keep up with those other companies.
Could you almost argue that any company with real growth is a tech company now, right?
No. On the face of it, you can argue that any company is a tech company. The same as me putting AI expert on my LinkedIn makes me an AI expert.
Yeah. Cool. The other really interesting one was Bitcoin. So those crypto bros out there, you win one every once in a while. Bitcoin went up 161% in 2023. What do we think, Mike?
That's because it is a fundamental key asset in the economy, and it really solidified its place and making sure that this is how global finance is going to work. Not. It's because an ETF got approved, right? So an exchange traded fund for Bitcoin, which made prices bubble off the back of that. Do you want to quickly recap what an ETF is?
Yeah, ETF is an exchange traded fund, which is pretty much, instead of it like Bitcoin, you have to have like a platform and the tokens and all that kind of stuff. You can go onto any platform and trade it in a much easier way.
Yeah, like if the example was gold, instead of having to buy gold, vault the gold, pay for the vaulting, actually physically get someone to handle the gold, I can buy and sell gold prices effectively online.
Yeah, cool. The other thing I want to talk about is everybody goes, I'm just going to put my money in the S&P 500. And one really big thing is, like different companies perform, you've got good performers and poor performers. There are good and bad performing countries during years. So while the S&P 500 went up 23% in 2023, the NZX went up 0.7%.
All three companies?
Yeah. Wow. Apparently there's 50.
Huh?
Yeah. Lighthouse, not one yet, but watch this space. So, I mean, you think about that. The ASX went up 6%. It's just... And then you might go, well, that's why I put my money in the S&P 500. I won't put it in New Zealand and Australia. There has been plenty of years where the New Zealand and Australia and Europe and emerging markets have outperformed the S&P 500, which is why you have the diversification into different companies and countries.
Yeah. Do you think that the NZX going up 0.7% was helped or hindered by the weather events in 2023?
It should have been helped.
I would say hindered, and that next year or back half of this year, back half of last year, and most of this year, it will be helped because you get the initial shock, the supply side shock of all the fruit and all of the orchards and everything going out. You have the disruption to goods and freight flow around the country and traffic and the added kind of costs that brings. But then as the infrastructure is repaired and things come back online, much like Christchurch, you have the initial dip and then you have that boom. Yep. So again, if you're just looking at the S&P 500 going, this is the only thing I'm going to invest in, it's safe, it's diversified, you've got to look a little bit further abroad in terms of your diversification because you can never keep track of what's happening in every market all of the time, but with a good diversified portfolio, you will get these wins.
Yeah. The other very noteworthy player in 2023 was bonds. Bonds have been out of fashion for quite a long period of time, mainly because apparently interest rates were low for quite a long time, Mike.
So you hear about it.
Now, when interest rates go back up, your old friendly mortgage broker is a little bit depressed, but bonds become far more attractive because as interest rates go up, you can get a better return. So they've just moved up to, far better numbers sitting in the 5, 6, 7, 8s, depending on, obviously what you're investing into. The interesting thing around bonds, and actually even if you look at like a medium risk portfolio, is you'd go, well, the historical 5-year return is like 2%. I can get 6% in a term deposit. Why would I put my money there? The reason is term deposits are priced today bonds are talking about historical performance. So they are not apples with apples.
Yep.
But bonds are going to be fashionable going into 2024 for sure.
Yeah, I'm still not going to invest in them, but it's fine. Cool. All right, so 2023, everything rallied, it defied expectations. There's shifts in monetary policy across the globe, interest rates going up, doom and gloom, yet the markets are still outperforming. So I guess your reflections on 2023?
Pretty much exactly what I thought. People are silly.
I don't want to say I called it.
Yeah.
Pretty much what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, if you go, is at some point 2023, is it going to be the bottom of the market? I mean, I thought that was pretty obvious from the start of the year. The big takeaway, and for those that are listening to this trying to improve their financial position, it just doesn't matter if the markets are up or the markets are down. Like, all you have to do is go, what is my plan? What are my goals? I'm going to do this thing as quickly as I can do it in a diversified manner, and wait. You're not smart enough to understand what is happening, with macro markets or what is happening in these different economies. The most important thing is, once you've worked out now is the right time to invest, you've missed the opportunity. And the biggest one that I see is people going, well, I'm not going to invest right now because I'm a bit worried about what's going to happen in the world. I'm going to wait a bit. And it's like, well, if you break that down and think about what that means, what you're saying is you're going to wait for markets to go up, i.e. something to be more expensive and for you to lose money, and then you're going to invest. And what happens usually once things go up? Eventually they go back down.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was one of my big takeaways was, bad times never last, bad people do. That's why you're still here with us, Mike. Now, bad times don't last, markets go in cycles, and I promise you another bad period is just around the corner, unfortunately. Picking individual stocks, for those with the Sharesies portfolios, please pick something diversified. Don't muck around picking individual stocks.
I think the stat is like only one person made money last year on the Sharesies account.
Yeah. I also love how every time you give me a stat, it's a different number. I mean, nearly half of the entire stock market's gain was due to the Magnificent Seven out of hundreds of companies. So the question is like, how are you going to pick those companies when so much of the market is delivered by a few really, really strong performers?
Yeah. And I guess the last thing is probably from us is that the news is always priced in. By the time, the Fed signaled its pivot into cutting rates in 2024, everything was already priced into the market. The market knows what's going to happen. It is the most efficient thing pretty much we've got on the planet for predicting the future. So by the time retail investors get to it, she's long gone.
Yeah. So the takeaway is, the big takeaway is, it's all about having a plan and thinking about where you want to go. And this is all noise. Noise will always exist. Out of every recession, the next recession is forecasted 10 times. So just think about where you are, where you want to go. I am feeling very optimistic about 2024.
Yeah, walking into 2024 with a much different attitude, a very different kind of expected outcome for this year in terms of activities, growth, all of the good stuff. So we are very excited.
Yeah. And if you go, well, I'd like to hear some of your predictions, well, you're just going to have to hang around for another episode because we've got our predictions episode coming up very soon.
And it's a cracker. I'm going to talk about the fact that I'm going head to head with an economist on an interest rate prediction in 2024 with some customers. I'm so excited for it.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We've got a very exciting announcement in our next episode. And it is very fair to say that 2024, we have some absolutely cracking guests that are going to join us as well. So if you want to go, wow, that sounds very interesting, the only way you're going to see it is if you subscribe, if you give us a review and a like, and we will catch you next time.
Cheers.